Welcome back to Hardball. As the House inches closer to impeaching President Trump next week, the Senate's preparing for a trial. And the Republican leader over there, Mitch McConnell, told Fox News that there is no daylight between the Republican jurors, that's the Republican senators, and the defendant, that would be the president.
We'll be working through this process, hopefully in a fairly short period of time, in total coordination with the White House counsel's office and the people who are representing the president in the will of the Senate. Everything I do during this, I'm coordinating with White House counsel. There will be no difference between the president's position and our position as to how to handle this. There's no chance the president's going to be removed from office. My hope is that there won't be a single Republican who votes for either of these articles of impeachment.
White House counsel Pat Cipollone, who was expected to defend Trump in the Senate trial, was seen leaving McConnell's office just yesterday. Isn't that cute? Ahead of the trial, which has not been scheduled yet, Republicans are debating just how long they want it to last and who they want to hear from. According to Politico, Republicans' plan would be to call no witnesses and simply allow House Democrats and then the president's attorneys to make their case before the public. And after that, the Senate would consider calling people either for live testimony or closed-door depositions, probably in committee. Well, earlier today, when asked if he had a preference, President Trump provided no clear answer.
I'll do whatever I want. Look, we did nothing wrong. So I'll do long or short. I've heard Mitch, I've heard Lindsey. I think they are very much in agreement on some concept. I'll do whatever they want to do. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't mind a long process because I'd like to see the whistleblower who's a fraud.
For more, I'm joined by former Congressman Barney Frank, Democrat from Massachusetts. There you are. And Ruth Marcus, Washington Post deputy editorial page editor and author of the big new book, Supreme Ambition, Brett Kavanaugh and the Conservative Takeover. I like to say they're liberals. Friends of mine, 7-2. This guy gets back in, 7-2, Supreme Court. Think about it.
You know what the president says? He likes to say, I'll get 5. He wants to have 5 nominees.
Oh, he'll get his 7 the way he's going. Let me go. Barney Frank, thank you, sir, for joining us. The president is supposed to be tried by the Senate, yet the leader of the Senate, who calls the majority under his hoof, is acting like he's thrown it already, thrown the trial.
No question. There's an arrogance there. By the way, when the Clinton impeachment came, there was not that degree of coordination. In fact, the leading senator at the time, or one of them, was Robert Byrd, who ultimately voted not to convict, but was a man who understood the institutional and constitutional requirements of independence. I remember one case where the White House had a proposal for who was going to be presenting their case. The Senate overruled it. By the way, the Democrats in the House, totally contrary to the Republicans in the House, who've been 100% supportive of whatever Trump says or does, we were ready to vote to censure Bill Clinton. In committee, we voted to censure him. The Republicans were afraid that censure would pass instead of impeachment in the House and manipulated the rules and defied the rules not to allow it to come up. So, no, there was yes, most Democrats were skeptical. In the end, no Democrat voted for the impeachment, but they respected the constitutional separation of powers, and the White House was not dictating the strategy.
Well, Ruth, you know everything, and you're a lawyer as well as a great journalist and editor, but the fact is, and we all know, I didn't know this, but there's an oath that U.S. senators must take as they go into a trial of a president for impeachment, removal from office, where they have to solemnly swear that that in all things pertaining to the trial and now pending, they'll be impartial in giving justice according to Constitution laws. They'll be impartial.
They're going to do impartial justice.
And there we have I don't know whether he's Elmer Fudd or he's Bugs Bunny sometimes. Is he running from or running the show, Mitch McConnell?
Well, he's it's interesting that he said that because he knows what's coming and he knows that his oath is to do impartial justice. And he knows that he's going to get some criticism for what he said, but he also knows he has a constituency of one and a constituency of his base that he also needs to satisfy.
Why are they so afraid of this guy, of Trump? He's on trial.
Yeah, Trump's on trial, but Trump's voters can put McConnell on trial. He's the most unpopular senator. He has other senators to worry about. He wants to signal that he's in line with this guy. But it's yet another situation where the Senate is not doing its constitutional
Barney, why do you think
role.
the senators aren't? Why isn't the president kissing up to the senators? He needs the votes to save himself from impeachment, from conviction. Why are they, acting like they're the supplicants here to him?
Because of the voters. I understand criticism of people in your profession, in my former profession. I often agree with it. But the voters are no bargain either sometimes. And what you have is the people who vote in Republican primaries demand slavish obedience to Donald Trump. And there's no question there are senators in a secret ballot who would certainly be much more likely to vote no, or vote to convict. But they are all afraid of losing their primaries. They think of Jeff Flake. They think of Bob Corker, the Republican electorate. And what happens is there's a dynamic. As the Republicans get harder and harder in this kind of far-right Trump fealty, some people leave the Republican Party. So that means the remainder are this hardcore. Now, Mitch McConnell is going to pay a price for it. And frankly, I think the way this is going to play out, the Republican senators are now making the toughest choice a politician can make between the primary and the final, between making sure you get renominated and then winning in November. And I think you have a number of Republican senators, you mentioned many of them, who are very much in that bind. And I will tell you, I have a slogan that I am suggesting to the Democratic candidates for the Senate all over the country. You don't have to live in Kentucky to vote against Mitch McConnell. He doesn't get to be majority leader unless Cory Gardner and Susan Collins and Joni Ives and all those other people are reelected. And that's where I think this is going to play out politically.
Well, speaking of the devil, I guess, here's Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who tried the House's case against Bill Clinton back in 1998. He called today's historic vote in the House on the impeachment articles, quote, a sad, ridiculous sham in the United States House of Representatives. This needs to come to a quick end. Well, in 1998, as a congressman from South Carolina, he had a very different point of view.
Please give us a chance, American people, to document what the president actually did. I know what people want to do with this case. I know they want to get it over. I know many of them don't want the president to be impeached. But I've got a duty far greater than just getting to the next election. Some House members have said, I will not vote for an impeachment. Let me tell you, please don't say that until you understand what you're voting on. Members of the Senate have said, I understand everything there is about this case, and I won't vote to impeach the president. Please allow the facts to do the talking. Don't decide the case before the case is in.
Chris, can I
Barney,
just say,
what do you make of this guy right now?
Very little. I think Lindsey has he's been a master of the fake. He was going to do this and he was going to do that, and then he never does. He comes out on the right wing side every time. I have proposed. I've asked the Kennedy Library people whether they have a procedure for rescinding a Profile in Courage award. Apparently, they don't. But what you have, and let me just say, and again, let's be clear what's going on here. Yes, you can say there's a duty to ignore politics, but there is one ineradicable fact here. If you want a question to be decided wholly without political influence, don't ask 535 politicians to make it.
Thank you so much, Barney Frank, and thank you, Ruth Marcus. Your name of your book is Supreme Ambition. It's all about where Brett Kavanaugh came from and why. Up next, Rudy Giuliani picked an auspicious day to drop by the White House. There he is. I love this walk with his son there, walking across from the Eisenhower building to the West Wing. What is he up to with the president? Probably the same thing Mitch McConnell's up to with Cipollone. Was he briefing officials on his recent dirt digging in the Ukraine?